Okay, so Assalamu alaikum again. The second video is about prioritizing, and I mentioned this before, but I'm taking a different angle at it right now. Sometimes people get excited about things, whether it's projects or work or whatever it might be. Theoretically, it sounds like it's achievable, it's great, and they bite more than they can chew. And soon they realize that it's a big chunk that they actually ended up biting. And sometimes you can't even decide to chew part of it. Sometimes you just have to throw up or throw out the entire thing out of your mouth. Now, I'm going to use the same side of the bed that I showed before in my previous video. Now, if you look here, this looks nice from the top. But believe it or not, actually we have a guideline to planting beans. And there's a spacing guideline, meaning you can't just plant all the seeds next to each other, because they will actually end up destroying each other. And what I mean by that, if you look here, I have a lot of leaves overlapping, meaning they're not allowing the other ones to actually grow out. You see these guys? They probably are not going to make it. This will definitely not make it. That actually got snapped out. So, and this guy is not going to make it. So what happened? Now, for us, those who are in planting, this is something that actually we do intentionally. And the reason we do it because we're not guaranteed that every single seed is going to actually germinate. So what we do, we overplant, meaning we put more seeds than needed, and then we do one or two things. We transplant, or we do what we call thinning. And thinning is pretty much you're just taking out the ones that you feel are not strong enough to allow for the other ones to grow and give you the fruits that you need. And that's exactly in life. Don't take on a lot of things that you cannot handle. I actually have this, and I deal with people who, what happens to them is, whether it's at work or with friends, or, other things. And, and again, think about the process of thinning, right? Thinning meaning like you pretty much give up on one thing to allow for another one to prosper, right? And when you keep saying yes, whether it's at work, of course, work, you have the job description, all that. What I'm talking about is like the extras, or friends when they ask you for favors and you keep saying yes. As they say, for every yes, there's a no. And unfortunately, the first no, or the first people that actually get to hear your no, whether you say it or not, are actually your family members. Every time you overcommit to, because you have a limited number of hours in the day, and you have so much energy to actually be used per day. So when you commit those extra hours and that energy that you have to, outside the house, then the first victims are actually your family members. You end up not going home on time, or you go back home very tired, exhausted, and the list goes on and on. So my advice is, because thinning and transplanting doesn't happen in real life, it shouldn't be an option, because in that you're dealing with people. By the way, even for us when we farm, we don't like to thin, especially if we see that the plants are almost equally doing well. We prefer to transplant, and sometimes we even give them away to somebody who is actually interested in farming or growing those specific plants or vegetables. So even though it's just plants, and I'm not here comparing people to plants, but even in that we prefer not to do the thinning. Some people, they do it, but you don't want that to be in your life. You don't want to put a lot on your plate and then you start dropping. Now, that's actually people who realize that they're actually overworking themselves. They do the thinning at an early stage, and again, Unfortunately, a lot of times the ones that pay the price are actually the family members. And what I mean by thinning is like the commitment and the time and all of that. There are those that actually don't realize it, and they continue with the overwhelming amount of work and commitment, and the list goes on and on. And what happens is actually all the commitments get overlapped and they get destroyed, meaning you don't even fulfill those commitments. Now, again, if I was to leave that, right, if I was to leave it the way it is, what's going to happen to these guys is what they're doing at the bottom, actually they tap into the same bed of nutrients, which means they're not going to be, when they continue to grow, they're not going to be as strong as they need to be if I keep them next to each other in that manner, because there's only so much nutrients in that side of the bed. So they will continue to grow, but they're going to be weaker and weaker with time. I might not even get the beans that I'm looking for from any one of these. So I have to do either transplanting or thinning. And I might transplant some of them to actually my raised bed. That's a different topic. So again, if you put a lot on your plate, you make a lot of commitments, and you're not a person who's good in saying no, remember, for every yes, you are saying no. And first people are your family. So please, prioritize. Do not overcrowd yourself. Do not overwhelm yourself with those commitments. Commit to what you can handle. Once you feel strongly about it and you know that you can add more, it's okay to add it at a later time. You're better off saying no initially and then saying, hey, I might commit. This is what I do, even with promises. When people ask me to do things, it could be very simple things. I tell them, if I know myself that it's doable and I can do it, I commit to it. But if I have the littlest of the doubt that I might not be able to commit, first of all, I tell them I can't do it right now. Have me as a backup, and even with that, I'm not sure. And when I'm able to do it, some people don't take it well, by the way. Just to say, some people do not like it when I say, I'm sorry, I cannot commit. But I'm fine with that, because I always tell them, I would rather have you be upset with me right now and find an alternative than for you to rely on me and then I come last minute because I overwhelm myself and then I pull out. I drop the commitment. Then not only that you're going to be upset with me, but you might lose whatever you were counting on. So, and I know not everyone can do that. A lot of people ask me and say, how could you say no? And I tell them, it's not a no like I'm not interested or I don't want to help. It's a no as in I know myself, I know my schedule, and I know how much I can put towards whatever I'm committing to, and this is just maybe out of my reach. And it helps me a lot. It puts me, actually, believe it or not, in good relationship with those who understand the reason behind my no. For those who don't understand the reason, don't get me wrong, I'm actually better off not having a good relationship with them, because it was more of not kind of like a person-to-person relationship. It's more of like, I need it, therefore I deserve it, therefore you have to do it, and if you don't, then I don't appreciate you. Then there is no friendship to be established in that anyway. So I'm fine with losing their friendship or whatever the case might be. And you have to train yourself to be in that situation where, you know what, I am your friend, I will do my best, but I know that I have limits, as compared to, I'm trying to please you, and if I don't please you, you're going to hate my guts, so I'm going to try to please you, and it doesn't matter what happens to me. That is not a friendship, and honestly, that's not even a person to rely on when you need them. So I'm not here trying to judge anyone. That's my personal approach to things, and I can tell you, not to brag, the people who actually are close friends to me, they have no problem with me saying no whenever I feel that I cannot commit. Never impacted our friendship. I don't think about losing them if I say no when I know that I cannot help or I cannot be available. And same thing with them. whenever, if I'm asking for help or whatever the case might be, I know I'm adding to their plate. I try not to ask whenever I can, and that's the same thing with them. They don't just rush and say, "Hey, I just need somebody to help me." They try to do it on their own. I try to do things on my own. But whenever we approach each other, I have no issue with them saying no. I actually really appreciate it when somebody tells me no, from the get-go, because that helps me kind of like, move on and figure out other ways to do it. So make sure that these are the people that you keep as close friends to you, so you don't overwhelm yourself. You don't make your family pay the price, especially if you're married and you have kids. I highly, highly recommend that you don't put a lot on your plate. So with that said, I hope that we continue to learn from life and we make the best decisions. God bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.